Oh, boy. Kinda depressing,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it?
Where did it
Bare
go?
walls. What happened?
The artist reclaimed it.
Oh, yeah. Air.
All right, good evening. Let's open up this September 5th Town Council meeting. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All you, Twyla.
Roll call. Counselor Albert?
Here.
Counselor Colby?
Here.
Counselor Crawford?
Here.
Counselor Lunt?
Here.
Counselor Ward?
Here.
Counselor Crafts?
Here.
And Counselor Brunel.
Here. You're on a roll.
Next item is good news and recognition.
Recognition, Twyla handed me. The flowers on the table over here come from our community garden. Judy Aldridge brought them in. Just like to recognize them for their efforts. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would like to recognize those Greyhounds for their first win of the 2017 football season.
There you go.
Go Lisbon. Go Lisbon.
There you go. How about you? Anybody? Moving right along.
There are no public hearings. The audience participation and response for agenda items.
Anybody wishing to speak before the council on anything on the agenda, please feel free. Nobody move. Moving right along.
Consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to have an item removed may do so now. Order 2017-209 to approve the municipal accounts payable and payroll warrants 2021, 22, 23, 24, and 25. The school accounts payable and payroll warrants 1010, 1011, 1012, and 1804, along with the minutes of August the 15th, 2017.
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Next item.
Council orders, ordinances, and resolutions. Order 2017-210. The timeline order notice, adopt the ordinance and set the public hearing for the proposed energy bond, performance bond. It's really a purchase lease, right? This is a first reading.
Yes, it's a lease purchase where we would go out for funding. They go out to bid, and Siemens would bid on it. But it'd be through Siemens, but it's a lease purchase through them.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Green?
And it'll be funded through our current budget and revenues,
Okay.
capital reserve.
Okay.
So there's no bonds or anything.
I read some of their recommendations. How much discussion have you guys had a chance to wade into some of those? Just
Just this literally because of the timeline to get it on their November ballot. They gave me this, that you received this probably within an hour of when I received it.
right.
So there's a facilities committee meeting next Monday, and then we can pick out of those options or whatever that they have. I know there's an option, we talked about doing the roof and stuff, but some of those things aren't cost effective when it comes to
Right.
energy savings.
And the one that caught my attention was, replacing the boiler. I mean, that's pretty significant investment
high
for the
school.
payback associated with those kinds of things.
Yep, they'd be replacing the high school boiler, it'd be replacing it with two boilers similar to what they have at the middle school.
Right. Okay. All right, we need to set the timeline, so I will take the motion associated with this, knowing that Mr. Green's just brought that it would go through the facilities committee and all of that vetting process, so.
We'll have more information, and we'll have them at the public hearing.
Right.
You vote to do that.
Need a motion?
Make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Thank you, sir.
And you'll also want to adopt the order notice and ordinance related to this item.
Order,
And that
Just
would be
right
the
there after-
handout that you
oh, this
have
one here. Yes.
right underneath. Yeah. You'll have to sign the ordinance. So this will be a reading, first reading.
Okay. Feel free.
So, ready to go?
Absolutely.
Counselor Albert
Yes.
and Counselor Colby,
Yes.
Counselor Crawford,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor Ward,
Yes.
Counselor Crafts,
Yes.
And Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
Do we have who made the first and second, though?
Yep.
I was the
1 and
first
2.
and Cassie was the second.
Okay. And order passes 7-0. Thank you.
Do you want me to just hand this one to get the signatures?
The signatures are right here as
Come-
they're going around, yep.
You're way ahead of us, Twyla. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
And
He's got
I didn't
one.
mention, but one of the other funding sources is the reduction in debt service.
Okay.
There's amount of money that comes off the books each year, and so we're gonna, and by the time this project, if approved by the voters, by the time it actually we get our first bill, it'd be a year from now. So we'd almost be 2 years into our budget cycle, so there's 2 years, almost 2 years worth of debt service that would pay for it. And the front of the high school is coming off the books in 3 years, so that would be more than enough to cover the cost.
Perfect. Thank you. Next item, Twyla.
Order 2017-211, the capital reserve request for the camera security system at LCS.
He's up again.
This is a request to use the capital reserve. Last spring, it was brought to our attention that a lot of the security cameras that were installed in that particular building were not active. They were just devices in the ceiling. We did put in security cameras in specific areas, but this will help us finish the school, replace those cameras that were just fakes, I guess you can call them. They were just installed in the ceiling tiles, and they look legitimate, but there's no cameras inside, so this would be replacing all those different areas, and then also adding security to the outside of the buildings, which is something we've talked about for years. So this will be the first of probably 3 to 4 requests that we'll have, but this is the first one, the most important, and it's what we can afford right now using the capital reserve is to upgrade that security system at the community school.
I think it's important to point out, too, that when the school committee met and talked about this and they found the dummy cameras were there, they did bring up, say, hey, what's our recourse for the initial contractors? Put those in. And my understanding is those folks have long since gone away, went bankrupt. So they did kind of review to say, hey, did we get, snookered? And should we add more? And we didn't get it. We'll never be able to find out because those folks are no longer around, unfortunately. So.
And it was something that was unbeknownst. I've been here for, 16 years, and it just happened. I was sitting in a meeting in the cafeteria and asked just to go ahead and look at the cameras, and when we went to look at the cameras, there was nothing hooked up to that. And there was all these cameras. If you go in there, you'll see all those black ones. So the kids don't know which ones they are, but there are a number of those that were installed that aren't even hooked to any camera.
Would this provide full coverage throughout the entire,
This-
fill all of those dummies up, so to speak?
Yeah, this would provide more than adequate coverage throughout the building and outside the building, which we don't have at any of the schools right now. We have limited outside capabilities.
Is this the only?
Full blown system that we'll have in all the buildings, but this is all we can afford right now, and this is the area that we need the most improvement on.
Is this the only building that actually had known shortcomings, or are there more coming
Yeah,
up?
all the other buildings we've installed ourselves.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
kind of, we did surveys on different areas where kids felt that there was areas of need, and so I know when I was a principal at the middle school, I actually installed the cameras going down the hallways from Home Depot, and we've since installed several cameras from then, and then some outside cameras, but we assumed that the system that the community school was, the building's only 11 years old, and to find out just
Right.
through a side conversation that half of those cameras weren't even active was a surprise to me. So we've been working on that ever since.
Any other questions on the subject for Mr. Green? I need a motion.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
And thank you so much for that. And I just wanted to thank Diane and Twyla for their patience on this order, because we did literally came in at 5:21, I think it was, when we finally got it from Dan. But that wasn't his fault. It was my fault because of the timeline and the scope of this work. They really, and Siemens as well, because they did jump through a lot of hoops over the last 2 weeks to get this proposal put together for us in
Thank
order
you,
to
sir.
make that November referendum.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Next item, Twyla.
Order 2017-212, the library request to hold book sale events.
Good evening, members of the Town Council, Town Manager, and Lisbon citizens. My name is Diane Natta with the Library Department, and this evening we have asked to meet with you for you to review and approve the library department to move forward with what we are going to call mini book sales this year to help sustain the summer reading program. The proceeds would go into the G012030 account that was set up by the finance director. Presently, the monies that are left in there are the gifts that weren't expended from the local businesses. I think it's less than 100 because the paperbacks have come in, the gift books have come in. And that worked very well. We account for every penny, and it's used exclusively for summer reading as you all requested. As you know, the Friends of the Library continue to be generous with what monies they do have. They've done several things. However, they're not in a position to move forward with any book sales. Unfortunately, the Moxie Day book sale was missed. We got a lot of comments about that. However, no one has stepped forward to say, gee, I'll take it for 1 year, or my brother and I will do it. My mom and I, nobody. So there we are. However, our department is currently assessing the adult book collection and the entire DVD collection, as we do about every 7 years. And that ensures that our collections meet the needs of the Lisbon citizens and the requirements of our Mills Consortium. We follow the weeding policy and procedures precisely, and the result is we have books and DVDs that would have been given to the Friends for their next book sale. However, there they will sit. We want to do something constructive with them, something perhaps that would benefit that account. And so I met with Mrs. Barnes, and she and I felt that was a solution to benefit our department. We discussed the best way to maximize these withdrawal materials and our need to sustain this summer reading program. And so we both felt it was worth trying a couple of these, what we continue to call mini book sales. We would like to hold one this fall. September's already here, but early October. We thought we could coordinate with the event that the community does. However, that's late October, and it's all held at the MTM Center, so that would be, the logistics of that would be a little bit hard to work out. And then incorporate it into our participation of the Mary Main Street event. As you come in, we could have a couple of tables and offer them for sale at a real good price. And perhaps people go home with a couple of gems. Those monies would be put into that G01203 account, and then help us with the summer reading program. The other thing that we'd like to do is bring back the ongoing, what we used to call the bookshelf, 2 small bookcases that were in the front of the building as you came in, and people browsed through that. And that would help us as we, have a few to offer. People, again, may find a few gems in that, and that would sort of keep the books moving. We don't expect to make what the Friends did because they no longer take donations. We don't take donations for them, and so what we have are withdrawn books. Some of them are in bad shape. That's why they're being offered. Some of them are of no value to the collection, in the sense that a book on diabetes from the 70s doesn't do anybody any good. However, if we can make 50 cents, that's 50 cents that goes into that account, and it makes some little guy happy when he comes to the library and can do a summer craft. So we seek your permission to move forward with these 2 fundraising events. Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
So my understanding is we have the first and the second. We don't accept donations? You're
The
not
Friends-
looking to actually open it up from, no, the Friends do not, I get that.
Correct.
You're not anticipating actually having donations from the public being accepted?
We wouldn't have the ability to handle them. The Friends did that.
Okay,
There were a small group of ladies that would get together, sort them, rebox them, get them to the book shed, and then when they went away, then it put my staff in that
position
to
of-
do that on
right.
work time, and we're not in a position to do that,
Okay.
unfortunately.
I was more thinking of the, when you said the bookshelf, the fact is, if there was of that, but staging and being able to accommodate, I get where you're coming from.
We could be very specific. We could say your gently used DVDs, your gently used paperbacks, because people love those. However, certainly, they're National Geographics from the 60s.
Right.
don't
I
share
can't,
any
I can't, ta-
purpose.
I can't
And
take
We
everything.
do get those
Right.
calls almost every week, so,
Yeah.
Okay,
we do.
appreciate that. Any other questions?
No.
All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2017-213, to approve the order notice, adopt ordinance, and set a public hearing for the proposed bond for the wastewater collection and treatment system upgrades. This is a first reading.
We're still moving ahead with this, even though we haven't had final word from Washington on whether our application's been accepted to get the grants in the amount of $2,457,000. So I'm hoping by the 19th, we'll know one way or the other.
Okay. So
We need the hearing anyways.
That's right.
I need a
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
second. First reading requires roll call, right?
Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
Counselor Crafts?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Crawford?
Yes.
Counselor Colby?
Yes.
And Counselor Albert?
Yes.
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item?
Order 2017-214, the website design and bid awards.
Somebody gonna put that in there? She is.
Yeah, she'll put
This came to you at a prior meeting, which was a bundled package, the website and the branding. We've split it up this time because we really need the website design bid award. I just want you to know now that we have closed year end, the money that was in Tracy's budget to cover that has now lapsed into the TIF funds. So if you should approve this tonight, then you'll also need to authorize us to expend those funds out of the Deanley Press TIF fund account.
For the website?
For the website, for
Okay.
both of them.
Okay.
I've got it lined out exactly how the funding will take place for both of those.
Yeah.
Our extended audience is here. Why don't you come on up and actually? No, I know you did. I know you did. The last time this actually came for us, we had a limited engagement with numbers in the House, so why don't we actually just bring people up to speed with, now that we've got a consensus here?
Great. Tracy Stuber, Economic and Community Development Director. Good evening. I apologize for stepping out of the room. Before you, again, this goes back, I believe, last year when we were looking at bids on redoing the website. We'd also looked at doing branding along with that. We've interviewed the different companies. I've also handed out like little pamphlets that you can see kind of standing up on the company that we are recommending, the virtual towns and schools. So you can kind of see a little bit on what they do. There's also some reference letters in the packet from other communities that have used this particular company. And get out here with my... As you can see, it was broken down, and you can see as far as all of the folks that did bid on it. This was posted on our website, posted in the paper. It was posted on MMA site, which yield us people from California, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Nebraska, Maine, Pittsburgh, Boston, all over. There's also, you can see within the difference of the bids, there's certainly a lot of, variations as far as on that. One of the things we find, we are making the recommendation as far as for our website is to go with the virtual towns and schools. They came and did 2 presentations. They did a presentation to departments, to the department heads, and had good feedback from the department heads as far as on what the website will do for those departments, including the water department. Bill was very excited about the website. As well as we had a committee of folks come in, and I know Councillor Lunt was part of that presentation, and Councilor Albert was as well. I guess right now is just based upon the bid given to you is, you know, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have
Have any questions of Tracy regarding the bid?
and this will be for the website.
I just do want to add that I did get to see the presentation. I thought it was a big improvement over our existing website, both in terms of looks and presentation and in terms of functionality. Our existing website, as anyone who's used it, especially on the back side, knows it's quite clunky and outdated, and it's hard to add new information to it. And I think this would be a lot better in terms of functionality and being a center point both for the people in the community to use to contact the citizens and get people involved, and also for outreach to other people outside the community to try to improve our image and bring in outside business, which I think is something we struggle with.
Yeah, thank you. That's really the goal is you know, when we looked at, I spoke with the Gov office, and they said the same thing, and they were the original creators of the website. The website is definitely outdated. It's technology changes on a daily basis, as the majority of you know, and we need to keep up with that technology. And this is going to better help us with our citizens, as well as using it as an economic tool, and with bringing businesses to the community, as well as new folks wanting and looking at the community. Because anybody looking to move in a community, they're going to go on a website of that town, and that's going to be our statement. That's going to say a lot.
And our current website is not very mobile friendly either. So
That is
everyone's on
correct.
phones these days, and it's set up for old school browsers, and we need to be mobile friendly.
Go for it. You were there too, right?
Yeah,
It's in your
the
wheelhouse.
only thing that comes to mind is all those things that Mark said and a bag of chips. It was definitely a great presentation and a lot of good things over what we are dealing with right now. I don't want to sound like I'm this and any other folks who put a bid in. The thing that always makes me worry, or I should say makes me want to be diligent and on guard, is the cost, the creep of cost for maintenance. Usually they'll give you that sweetheart deal up front, say it's going to cost this much every year to maintain, and you see that slowly creep. It's one of those things that they realize if we creep by 3%, nobody really gets upset, but if we do it by 5%, people notice. So it's like, I just want us to keep an eye on that, like we would on any other service that the town purchases. But it's one of those things that's easy to, be enamored by the shiny bells and whistles that come along with the new piece. Let's just keep our eyes open on making sure that they keep them honest when it comes to that maintenance fees. So that's my only take.
And in going through this website too, I mean, we relook at it again in 3 years.
Right.
So,
That's why I put it out there.
So what we're asking right now is to award the website bid to Virtual Towns and Schools in the amount of $9,000 from the Dingley TIF funds. And if you recall, we had $10,000 budgeted for this.
To Mr. Albert's point, the maintenance next year, this comes out of Ryan's budget, correct? It's not something that's...
that is correct.
It's just the initial purchase.
Yes.
Okay.
Make a
Well,
motion.
it comes out of the technology budget.
Right, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Who
All
made
in-
the motion?
Right here, Mr.
Chris.
Crawford. Mr. Crawford.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2017-215, branding bid award.
Good evening. Again, as part of this packet, when we put it out to bid, we also included Brandon. I had the opportunity to have a couple of folks come, and we did a tour of Lisbon, and I showed them some wonderful highlights of the community. Ryan Neal is with MDF, which is the main downtown group foundation, as well as he is also working with the EDCM. EDCM is Maine's Economic and Development Council. They were quite impressed, and I did say to them as far as what we're trying to do, as far as our marketing in the area, promoting the area. So Ryan had sent a letter. Again, this is somebody from the outside coming in and looking at Lisbon and giving his thoughts. So you do have a letter from Ryan. One of the other things that and I apologize because I thought I had it with me, was Nancy Marshall's is very well known in the state of Maine for communications. It's a big, big marketing firm. They do a lot with Maine state tourism and go through that branding and process of it. And looking through there, the article has stated the importance of municipalities going through and branding and what that branding does and what it means. And what it means is how we attract people to the community. It's not a logo, just a logo. It's not just a tagline, but it's how we market the community. And it does become an economic driver for a community when you have a branding with that. The idea of it is that this is a one-time fee as far as for our Brandon. This, the Brandon is the gentleman with the virtual tours, the company that put in for the Brandon. That's the same person that does all their branding and marketing for them as a company, and they use them for everything. So their bid came in at $6,000. So in doing that, it just makes sense as we're doing a new website is that we have some sort of branding to go along with it. With all of the activities and new things and more projects that I'm working on, this to me is a really good time to really start promoting and marketing Lisbon.
I think it makes a lot of sense to do the two right together, so you're not designing a website and then going back and doing a branding that is, doesn't match your website, or you're gonna try to change the website to match the branding, and that's additional costs. So I think it makes a lot of sense to do them right together with one company, and, that's how a business would do it.
Go ahead, I see it right on the tip of your tongue.
I don't want to influence anybody. I just don't see the value. I understand what you're saying. I understand how timing seems right by it, but it seems like an awful big cost, and I don't see the return. And I realize and I understand, well, here's the return, we're going to attract more people. I think the website does that standalone. I don't think we need to spend another $6,000 or $7,000 to have somebody tell us what our brand looks like. That's just me, the way I think. That's where I stand on it. I don't see the value in it.
The last time the conversation came up, it fell apart with me personally, and the fact is putting my head around what are we paying for $6,000?
Yeah.
What am I getting out of it? I mean, when we talked about it last time, we talked about a logo or something a slogan, things I can tangibly touch, and then the question becomes, to Mr. Albert's point, is it worth the value of what we're paying for it? I know there's different approach, that's why we're all sitting here having the discussion, but I'm still befuddled with what I'm getting for $6,000.
New website and timing doesn't equate to me $6,000 for whatever that, we don't even know. I mean, if there was some sort of, here's a preliminary, here are some things we're talking about for branding, but right now it's just kind of like, it makes sense to do it right now. Okay, so what does that mean? What are we trying to accomplish? What is that going to look like?
Well, right, and within the Brandon, it really becomes that of a community project. So it's very difficult. I can't stand up here and say this
know.
is what it's going to look like. Is because this is going to be a community involvement. This is going to be the community sitting at the table with the experts, going through, looking at the community. Again, having insights of the businesses that are within a community. Maybe they don't live in the community, but they do have a business in this community. They do have a stake in the community. So what do they want to see? Again, it would be involving, council and department heads. It would be an involvement from everybody as far as in building that.
And as you present that, so something that strikes me right now would be, well, if we're going to involve the community, rather than put the cart before the horse here and put out some cash for a branding piece, why don't we go to the community and see what they have to say first and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. We're thinking about spending some money to brand here. What are your thoughts? And maybe do a couple public hearing, however you want to do it. I'll leave that up to you in deciding how it would be best to bring those resources together and gather those brainstorming sessions and see what comes out of those before we really, that's just my thought. It might be the way for me to think. I want to talk to our community first, see what they have to say, and then come back to it with an approach of, all right, so now we've got some ideas of what our business folks and our taxpayers haven't for an idea what they feel Lisbon is, and then we can kind of tie that into a brand of some type and say, what do we want that to look like? And then give that to some of the professionals. I feel much more comfortable saying, yeah, I can pony up and get behind that, putting taxpayer dollars on something that has already got some legs under it and is starting to gain some momentum. For what it's worth.
I was going in a different direction on that. And is part of one of the things that never saw was what was the RFP? What are we getting? Are they investing time in that $6,000 to facilitate the public forums?
Yes, they would be the ones that would be coming in and gathering up all the data and all of the information and meeting. We would have like public meetings, just as Norm had stated. we would invite
They would
public
be
in.
facilitating them for that
Yes.
$6,000.
Yes, they would be.
Okay.
That would be part of
I
part
can
of
see where the
that.
cost would come in that regard, because it is a resource coming from the outside.
That is correct.
At least the light's coming on of what I'm actually getting for the value.
It would be that of like somebody coming in and,
Right.
and doing a feasibility study or something like this. They would be coming in, again, it's somebody from the outside who has no stake. And it's not just going to be what one person thinks, then another person thinks. It's really gathering all of the data, all the information, and getting consensus of that and saying, okay, based upon that, this is what we, I think represents Lisbon. And this is based upon what the folks are saying what represents Lisbon.
Hey, just to back up for a second, isn't the new website, doesn't that, if my memory serves me correctly from the presentation, didn't it have survey capabilities, so we didn't have to use SurveyMonkey, we could actually use the new website?
Yeah, you can use the website for a lot of different things.
So I was gonna say, maybe that's some functionality we should explore, because it's a lot more cost-effective, since we're already paying for the website, to try to get some initial kind of support before we go down this road. Food for thought.
Thank you. I feel better at least what I'm paying for value in that regard. Now the question is whether I find that it's
Correct.
worth it or not.
I mean, I think if you look at what people usually get for just doing like a logo or a tagline stuff
Right.
alone, I think would be usually more than the 6,000. So I mean, I think we're kind of penny pinching here. If we think we're going to get all new stuff for $20, it's not really realistic. I think that's a very good price for what you're getting there. I don't know. If we look at in a year from now, we might get much worse price. You might see 20,000 instead of 6,000.
Yeah, because it won't be attached.
Right, it won't be attached.
Won't be
to the
attached
package,
to the
so,
package, right?
You know, I think that you're going to end up spending more if you do it the way you're proposing.
Any other questions? I see a lot of frowny faces.
Yeah, a lot of people scratching their head going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
No?
Wait a minute
No one?
again.
If that's the case, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Do we have 4? 3? Okay, 3.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay.
At least we have the vote.
Again, I was a lot on the fence myself, but without actually having, as Norman says, without actually having anything to really see that you can bite into, it's tough kicking out that kind of money. Again, if you have a few public hearings and you got enough census in the neighborhood that want to spend that money on it, by all means, spend it. But right now, again, nobody's screaming to me to go ahead and do it. Go ahead and spend that $6,000 for something we don't even know what we're spending it for yet. It's-
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Tracy.
Yes, thank you, Tracy.
Vote 3-4 failed.
Next item, 12?
Order 2017-216, amend fee schedule to remove the processing fee for
Is there a
records.
question there? I heard.
I think Dot had a question.
Dot, did you have a question?
Yeah, I couldn't hear what the motion was.
We voted down to actually the branding part. Sorry. Pardon.
Okay. So it's order 2017-216 to amend the fee schedule to remove processing fee for records checks. We'll continue to do the records checks, we just will not pass on.
Because the
fee.
source doesn't charge us, we're passing it on.
We're passing it on.
Any question regarding the specifics of what they're talking about? It hits a couple of different places in this. It is a first reading, right? That's
The
what
fee schedule
It's
is the
not.
process of all the fees, so it's more in rules and regulations, it
Okay.
probably is a one-time thing, but we will have 3 other pieces that are in the ordinance that will require first and second readings.
Okay. That said, I will entertain a motion on the first piece. That'll be just a consensus.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0. So the next one is order 2017-217 to amend chapter 82, section 51, the fee to remove additional processing fee for records checks. This is, chapter 82 is in the rules and regs.
Can we put all of these together and do them as one?
Let's do the next 3 together, because they will all be
Okay.
roll call if you like.
Okay.
Anybody have any issue with any of the content? I will entertain a motion regarding all 3, if that's the case.
I think we gotta do this one first, and we're gonna do the other 3. Is that, did I get that right, Twyla?
The other
Okay.
3 are roll calls.
I'll make the motion for 217.
Correct.
All in favor? Second. Second.
Second.
Yeah.
There we go. All in favor.
Order passed,
Thank you.
7-0. And
Now you can
next-
bunch them up.
Now we can bunch.
Okay. So this would be a motion to, order 2017-18, an ordinance amendment to Chapter 10, Section 166A, and Chapter 10, Section 406A2, and 10505A2, to remove processing fees for records checks.
Mr. Albert was your first.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay?
It was his idea.
Clairvoyant over there.
I'll second.
A second?
All in favor.
Now
No,
we do the roll
it's all
call.
roll call, man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Okay, so Counselor Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Brunel. Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
Counselor Colby?
Yes.
Counselor Albert?
Yes.
Counselor Crawford? And Counselor Kraft?
Yes. Yes.
The order passed 7-0. 3 orders. Next is Order 2017-221, the roller shelving bid award.
Did you bring the confetti cannons? So when we,
It's quite exciting.
How much was allocated with the fund balance?
30,000.
That said, the 22.7 lives within that wheelhouse. I need a motion.
I'll make them, oh, go ahead. I've been hogging them all
I'll make the
tonight.
motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor.
Order passed 7-0.
Thank you,
Go,
Twyla.
Twyla.
Next is Order 2017-222, and extend the moratorium ordinance on retail marijuana establishments, stores, and social clubs. And this is a first reading, and a roll call vote is required.
We'll eventually get the habit of that, Mr. Brunel. Any questions for content? We're extending. That said, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second. Now the roll call.
All right. Counselor Crafts? Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor Albert?
Yes.
Counselor Crawford?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
And Counselor Colby?
Yes.
Ominous.
7-0.
Next item, Twyla.
Order passed. Order 2017-223, MDOT Route 9 Snow Plowing and Ice Control Modification Agreement.
They, MDOT sent me an agreement to sign. What they've done is they've increased the amount of reimbursement to the town for Route 9 plowing
Yeah.
in the amount of $4,197 from $15,483 up to $19,680. This is an agreement that's been in place since 2009, I believe. So for contract year 17-18, it would be $19,680, and then every year after that through 2013, they'll add a 2% escalation per lane mile.
Has this always been the standard for them to,
This is different. They've never done a
They've increased it to the maximum they can to do
That's
for
not what you
this.
said, but
2030. What did I say?
what's driving this? What do they want?
hear that.
2030?
2030 is when that,
2030. It's a 2% escalation from
Right.
starting next
That
year
was,
to
that was
2030.
my question too.
Yes, I mean, not that I'm not super thankful that they want to do that. It's awesome. What are they after?
And I was
I'm
quite
waiting-
surprised
waiting
when
for
they
the end-
called me to tell me they reevaluated all their contracts.
So that's all it was? They said we did a reevaluation and
Yep.
this is,
Yeah, so now I need to sign it, and I need authorization to sign it to
Somebody's,
get more money.
or somebody's
just
threatening
saying.
them litigation
make that
because they're not
motion.
yeah,
paying. Right.
just, call me.
Second it.
Yeah, there it is.
All in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Call me a pessimist, but I'm just waiting for the other shoe.
Oh, no,
It's gonna be
it's- I
dropping
think-
somewhere.
I think it dropped and somebody's already called them out that they weren't paying their share.
That's probably it.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2017-222, the fuel bids.
This is my annual request to solicit bids for the supply of diesel and gas. I'm not sure yet about the other fuel oil until we decide what we're gonna do on Union Street, and how much we're gonna need to actually put out to bid for the number 2 fuel oil.
In light,
Might not be
in light of the recent hurricane and the
I
fact
know.
that things are kind of still a little, can we
Yeah.
maybe just
I'm
stretch it
gonna
out for a
watch
couple
it.
weeks? Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I wish I had done it sooner, but who knows?
Those refineries are supposed to come back online from what I was
I know.
reading.
I've got until,
So-
I mean, our current contract expires September 30th, but I do want permission, and then
Yeah.
I'll wait it out some.
Awesome.
If I have to, I can go into October a little bit, but
Well, they know the storm was coming. They battened down every hatch. Nothing changed except somebody's pocket got a little thicker.
That's right.
All it is.
Their Q3 earnings are gonna look real nice on
Should
those
be
reports.
taking all that extra earnings they're making and turn it right back into Texas,
Yeah. Don't,
Louisiana, whoever needs the most help. Because we know that them people holding them purse strings are big.
My question is how did we get into a fall time frame, which is, in my limited experience, not the best time to be looking for these bids? In that regard, Lewison does theirs in the spring time frame. Typically, they start looking in the February, and they'll usually lock in before April.
I
And
just went with when the current contract expired when I came here. And you have to stay with that supplier until the contract ends because you have to use the amount of fuel that you said you're gonna use.
Right.
right.
Or you're gonna
Right.
have to pay more. So
Right.
it was already in the fall, so it's.
So we just inherited.
Well, if you
Let
want
me
Just
ask.
let you know, it hasn't been a bad thing.
It's coming off a year where we did extremely well with that last year, so you may end up paying a little more this time around with the circumstance. Where I was going with that is, in Lewison's case, they have the ability to be able to ratify after the fact to guarantee the best pricing when it's situationally there, and being able to demonstrate. And I was wondering
I
if that
could-
might be something we would want to consider with allowing Diane to be able to do.
I think it's not a half bad idea if that's a model that seems to be successful for them. And I think the thing is we'll have to look at, and I'm just speculating here, that we'll have to carry the current contract and then consider when the time comes if we're going to reset the time we do it.
I mean,
Problem with that is if you don't use all the fuel you said you're
You-
gonna
you-
use.
exactly,
So
you
if
have to guarantee what you're gonna buy.
If you stop at like at May or June, there's no way you're gonna use the fuel that you went out to bid with.
Well, sure, no, and I'm not sure, and this is probably where your expertise comes in much better than mine. If we were to go ahead and do something now, for example, and then say we wanted to reset the calendar to either in spring for late spring, early summer, or whatever the case may be, I don't know how that would
I
work,
can
but
go out to bid anytime for fuel and have it take effect when the current contract expires.
okay.
Could you go for,
That's-
could you go for a shorter contract for less fuel so it would end in the spring?
or a longer to
I
get
would-
past the
I
We'd
hiccup.
get
would
very favorable
rather-
prices either
I'd
there.
rather keep the same dates, but just go earlier
Okay.
and go out to bid,
Yeah,
say
I-
like June if I wanted to, and
Yeah.
say it's gonna take effect October 1st.
That works for me. I mean, I think that's, we're all
I
looking for the
just- I
same
just-
thing, which is
I
fuel
mean,
savings.
We need to,
That's
we need to
alright
get out of
if
the
it wasn't
cycle
a
associated with the fall. That's where I was going with it primarily, and I don't care how we do it, it's, my suggestion associated with ratifying, I know that died on the vine because the mechanism to be able to do that would have ran through the finance committee that we wrote out of the charter. You know, so we have to find a way to creatively be able to have that pass the straight face test
Yep.
here, but allow the flexibility with the oversight to be able to make sure we're getting the best value for it. So, that said, I was just bringing that up because it did go very well. You got pricing that we weren't anticipating last year. I don't even know if, instead of going with a shorter window or less volume, if you extended it for another 6 months to get it into that spring next time, would that get us past the immediate crisis of the sticker shock with what is going on during the South? Would that be better pricing? I don't know. You know, that said, I'll entertain a motion, and if there's any more questions.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, Joelle.
Order 2017-225, award bid for CDBG infrastructure project.
I think she stepped out for a minute.
And nobody left the room. Where'd she go this time? There she is.
You're up
Sure.
again.
Tag, you're up, sister.
No,
Locking up and setting the alarm. Tracy Stuber, Economic and Community Development Director. As you know, we went out to bid for the 196 project. This is the streetscape project we've been waiting so desperately for. We had 2 bidders on the project. Originally, we had 9 that actually took out bids, but only 2 had sent them in. You really have the packet with outlining all of the details regarding this from Mandy Oliver, which is our engineer for the project, and the recommendation is going to be basically going through her. We are talking about a CDBG grant, which means you go for the lower bidder. She has worked with the Ranger Contracting out of Winslow. She had good things to say about them and feels that they will do a good job for us. And it's going to come within our budget, which allows us to go up Union Street now as far as with new sidewalks. Any questions?
Referring to Mandy's letter, they feels that this actually is going to be completed before the June 30th timeframe, or quite specifically, it identifies the Moxie days. And reading the RFP, the questions that I have is, when is the notice to proceed going to go out that actually drives the 75 days for completion date?
We'll be looking at starting in the spring.
Right. Again, when is the notice proceed to be able to go out? Because if they have 75 days from that, my
To be able to-
recommendation would be at the latest April 1st to be able to make guaranteed that it actually is completed by the June 30th. If not, the $750 per day really doesn't matter because you've already missed the window for
Right.
the state's requirement. And that would be all the reason I was asking, so.
Okay. Yes, we will be going right within that timeline that is allotted to make sure that that happens.
Okay.
Yes.
So, awarding this now, the notice to proceed is not intended to actually go out until the spring?
We will go ahead as far as, and set our dates, and I've done that with some of the facade grants as well, because the contractors go ahead with the notices, get all the paperwork and all the documentation signed. We want to be under contract before the end of the year with this company, and then get a date set for them to be able to start right into the spring and go ahead and move forward. So they'll get the idea of notice to proceed. However, there'll be the timeline that will be set within that notice to proceed on when they'll start.
Okay, then we actually have to do something
What's she
regarding
saying here?
the underside agrees to the following: to substantially complete the work within 60 calendar days and complete the work within 75 days of the formal notice to proceed. There has to be something done with that. If we're giving them the notice to proceed, you can't have that actually go too soon to actually work against what they need to do with a time frame for the spring. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I see what you're saying. My only goal as far as for right now is
And I
to
get why
really
we
get
did
them
this
under,
this fall.
right, get them under the
Wanna-
contract. And, we'll work with the state to make sure that we follow within those guidelines and get them within the time frame that they need to be in. The state wanted us to have a contract by the end of this year.
Which is great.
Yeah.
The notice to proceed is part of that, but this language needs to be addressed to be able to accommodate that. I like that even if it speaks of damages of $750 a day if they actually over succeed that time frame that we established. But what I'm telling you right now is that language needs to be adjusted because of the way that it's written.
Right, and I can have, Mandy can make those adjustments based upon, to fit within that timeline.
Now, that's great, because Mandy addresses it in her letter, and the intent is to actually be done by that June 30th, as we've all talked about.
That is correct.
I am just beating the subject that I know the LDC and a few other folks have actually brought up, is that the funds are going to lapse in that June 30th. So they have to have it done to be able to honor the contract that we're putting in play. That was the only point that I'm making.
Yep. And if we come across as far as weather-wise, I don't anticipate, hopefully, that that's not going to be the case, but you never know what you're going to come up against neither in that regard. And this is why within this particular contract, they wanted to do it in this spring, because they'll be able to start right in on this project and have it be more at the forefront than kind of towards the end. Of a lot of the contractors now are quite busy. We do have the flexibility to go out for an extension as far as to make sure the projects, but the goal is not to have the downtown torn up during Moxie.
Right.
So that is why in the pre-meeting, when they were here, they were told that that was the deadline. That's what we were shooting for, and they had to get it done.
Okay.
So.
And I know that we brought it up time and time again as we've been revising these plans based on a bunch of different scenarios. So the thing that I would want to see us do is if we're going to use April 1st as our kickoff point to get this.
That was just me speaking.
Okay, so
that
let me
was
back
just
that.
That
me.
would
up
be
then.
between, that would be the engineer.
Right.
That would,
Right.
Mandy will set
Exactly.
that, yes.
Let me get off a hard date then. Say, let's say spring of 18. There, that way we're all set. If we're looking at that as early spring as a kickoff starting point, then I would just say that we should engage the state and try to get a very clear understanding. I know right now they've given us assurances that we can file for next. I would want to get into the weeds on that with them to say, hey, listen, our anticipation after we kind of go, and I think we know where this might be going. So if we get to that point where we're going to award and we're going to do these things, let's also get in the weeds with the state and understand, hey, best laid plans, but if the weather decides, Mother Nature decides not to cooperate, what's our recourse and what can we do to put those mechanisms in place, hoping that we never have to use them, but not trying to figure that out on the fly in the middle of the spring, having those laid so that we know all we got to do is flip a switch and enact this plan if Mother Nature doesn't
We're
cooperate.
actually able to do that in the spring.
Okay.
So
Can't do it prior to that and have engage?
We kind of have to if we're going to be under contract by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So.
Yeah.
and think
I
that
mean,
was where you were
it's
going.
already there, but I mean, as far as going through the actual paperwork and the formality of it, you know, it's too early.
No, I'm not saying that we
So-
should
I
put
think
in
we
for the
just want an
extension. I just
outline
want
of
us to
what we
know
would
that we're
do.
familiar
You
with.
don't want us to do the paperwork.
Yeah.
You just want to know exactly, these are the bullets that we have to do.
I want us to be well versed so that if we said, you know, a council meeting after we award a bid, you can come to us sometime in December or January and say, hey, part of our housekeeping piece is that we're moving forward on this. We've accepted, this is the date we finally hard and fast. And oh, by the way, if Mother Nature throws us a curveball, here are the mechanisms in place. That
Yep,
I
I can
contact
do
this
that.
office, I do this, and this is how we move
Yep.
forward to start that process. That way we have some assurances that we're not trying to figure out this process on the fly in the middle of a snowstorm that Mother Nature throws at us that delays us out.
No, that's not a problem,
Okay.
because I had, when I first came to Lisbon,
Right.
there were two grants on the table. There was the $20,000 Career Center grant, and there was a $20,000 Healthy Main Street grant. And I had to go through that process because the work had not been done, and I had to hire people and consultants and do all that. So it actually was an easy process. So I have done that process, so that wouldn't be no problem. Yes, we can do that and get that in place.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anything associated with the item that's further down the list, sir, that's actually going to impact the scope of what we're talking out on this project with the Union Street? I'm looking at Ryan now.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think so.
Just come to the podium and just,
Those two projects are going to play nice together, is what you're saying?
Depending on Ryan Layton, Public Works Director, depending on what decision is by the council this evening, our work should be done and paved back in before it snows.
but it's not redundant, anything associated. They were talking streets.
There's gonna be a trench up the
street,
Union Street,
nothing
and
to
then
do
there's
with the
gonna be a
sidewalk.
couple curb cuts across the sidewalks that'll get paved back in, and then whatever they do is whatever they do next year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It was just too tidy. They're on the same darn agenda. You don't ask, you look foolish.
So I have a question that, I see we're gonna go forward with alternative 1 with additional lights, but what's the rationale for not going with alternative 2 since we're so much under in the base bid?
Well, we got to figure the cost-wise of things. One of the things that we're obligated to do for the developer is to purchase granite curbing. They're going to do the installation of it. So it's really allowing that leadway, you know, to make sure that we stay within our budget.
Okay.
We don't want to cut ourselves off too short.
Right, I did realize that about the
Yes.
curbing. It's definitely
So
a
it made
expense
more sense if we have the opportunity for the extra lights, especially with the solar lights, to go that route. And I had a conversation with Mr. Fellows on other things that we can do with Davis Street.
But it's out there. Will the pricing that's actually in this, will we be able to tap it for a change order to be able to accommodate what we'd have to do in that area? Or is that a separate purchase?
As far as the change order, for doing the change order, or?
No, I'm asking quite specifically if Miller's actually comes up and we're obligated to provide them the granite and that type of whatnot, can we tap it from this source, or would it
Oh, it's
be-
already in there.
This
Yes,
includes that
Yes.
as well?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, if it's not within the bid of the contractor, we're doing it as a side.
Right.
So we've calculated those funds, we put those funds
Right.
aside.
So there would be a
Yes.
change order to, as you point, if you
Correct.
have X amount available, some of this has to be able to accommodate that in front of that area.
That is correct.
Nice.
That's what I need to hear.
Yes, we already took care of that.
Makes sense.
Okay. Do you have any idea what that additional amount is to know that you're underneath it?
Did you put it in here?
I think there's allowance for materials purchased for $10,000.
Yes.
After that.
Yep.
Right there. And so there's a contingency of 26,000 left over.
Okay. Wasn't the way I was reading that. I was reading it from what their bid was.
Right.
Okay. No, thanks
I
for
think
pointing.
that the 10,000 is not included in their bid.
You're right, I should have
Yes,
noticed it was
that's
coming
separate.
from our source,
Yeah.
not the vendor.
Right, yes.
Okay.
And that's what the granite curbing is under that
Okay.
materials.
Perfect. Any other questions of Tracy? Need a motion?
Make a motion to accept?
Yes, that's a second. All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank
Tracy.
you.
Thank you.
Next item, Twyla?
Order 2017-226, the natural gas for Union Street.
Ryan Layton, Public Works Director. Back to talk about natural gas on Union and Main again. The original plan to go behind the businesses on Main Street on the 196 side, or like a better way, I guess it's the westerly side. That fell through. Unitil was unable to secure the easements that they needed for the work that they were going to do there, and then bring it to Union Street, and then the town can go off and do their thing in our own street. They were able to run the numbers, and based on the potential users they could pick up on Union Street, along with the library and the fire station, they can still make the numbers work from their end for running the pipe and making the connection at the main in 196. So this would require us to basically do the same thing they just did closer to Main Street to get Frank's and then Dr. Mike's. We'd have to do a tap in 196, more than likely be night work, and then run up Union Street to Main Street, and then down as we originally planned. Based on the efforts required for that, that's something that we would definitely need to put out to bid. Based on traffic control, night work, the whole 9 yards. That work in 196 into Union Street definitely needs to be done by an outside vendor. We're going to have them do that part. Based on our timing at this point, I'd like to consider the option to have them do basically all the trenching. You're going to be dealing with a vendor that's used to dealing with the gas company. Based on one estimate that we received in advance, I think it's probably our best option to put the whole thing out to bid and then have Public Works pave the trench back in when everything's said and done.
So it says natural gas Union Street. Is that, you're looking to go out to bid to that? Because that's kind of,
The request is to put the excavation work by an outside contractor out to bid. That'd be my request. We put that RFP out right away, have the results back within a week, so that way we can come for the next meeting, coming up on it in terms of time frame. And then I added in the memo, I included some additional costs that I feel would be associated with those efforts. Police detail, and then the paving of the trench. So I guess my initial request is just to put out to bid for the excavation and backfill of the pipe to be laid by Unitil.
Do we have an estimation on how much we'd save in heating costs per year at the library and the fire station? I mean, this cost has gone up a good bit here, and I just want to make sure it's going to make sense financially, how long it's going to take to pay off.
I have not done that.
I'd like to know, is this going to take 10 years or 20 years to pay for itself? Does it make sense?
I think my understanding of that is if we do this now, then it opens up for when MDOT comes through, the opportunity for us to then connect natural gas along the whole line of the project, or did I misunderstand that?
There's those opportunities will present themselves, but the biggest issue for us was to convert to natural gas, which is what we've done that throughout. And I don't think the natural gas prices have dramatically increased, but honestly, I haven't looked at those return and, cost benefit analysis type of thing in a while. It's always been the goal, we're gonna connect to natural gas, so that's kind of the direction we've been.
And we're not taking anything, we're just giving him authorization to go out to bid is all it is.
And we're
What was-
Correct, correct.
Correct. Refresh my memory, though. What was the cost to actually go the other route comparatively? Because
Yes.
we're looking
I think our
now,
cost would have been significantly less, because it would have been public works, labor, rental of equipment, it would have been significantly less.
yeah.
But that
Versus-
changed.
And do we know why?
What, the original
Yes.
project? Yeah, we
Yes,
know very,
yes.
we know very
Does
clearly why it
everybody here
changed.
know why?
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
So we're talking to the tune of 20 to 30 grand now for something that was.
Well, the 20, yes.
Like
I would say,
25
yeah,
to
20 to
30.
25 still, maybe 27 with PD.
Okay.
The estimates I got were on the lower end of my range, but again,
Under 30.
If we were putting it out to bid, yes.
Right.
Did-
Time of year doesn't help either.
I don't know as it would have made a huge impact in terms of that, but.
What time frame are you giving him to complete? We still trying to shoot for this?
End of September, beginning of October. End of October, we'll say. End of October.
sense of urgency.
Talking to Unitil and also talking to the one vendor so far, they seem like they'd be able to fit within that time frame. It's not a big job for
Of course not.
someone that does it on a regular basis.
Sense of urgency around this is because we have the other project coming up soon.
Because
It's
we already
just
have
we've
58
been-
grand committed to actually have the two
Correct.
buildings converted.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well,
Yeah, 'cause,
the money's, well, it's.
Correct.
I don't know how you guys deal with the money, but.
Correct.
Now, that's where I was cutting to the chase. is
No,
that
no,
that
sure.
number only goes up as they're trying to install a heat system closer to the time of needing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll make the motion to let Ryan go out to bid.
I need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Thank you for letting us vet it.
Do you want me to wait to go out to bid for the boiler upgrades, or should I try to do that at the same time so I can get this all together as a package?
You would think you would do it all at one time.
Yeah.
I
makes
wouldn't-
sense.
I wouldn't.
Glad you asked.
It's only going to get worse when you get the pricing closer to October.
Today's September 5th. Go.
Very good.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
Next item, Twyla?
For 2017-227 server software bid award.
Long time no see.
This goes back to what we talked about during budgets, about upgrading the server software as well as our exchange and office licensing. We put out RFP to a whole list of vendors. The pricing is all very, very similar. The low bid was CDW. Well, I should say the only bid that we received within the time it was supposed to be received.
Responsive.
Yes, the
Yes.
responsive low bidder was CDW, thank you. And for a total of $24,274, I'd be asking for permission to award to CDW in an amount not to exceed. I'm gonna go back through our total list of users, sit down with PD, narrow down the scope, and only order exactly what we need for licenses. The 70 licenses is what was based on when we started doing the budget, and I think that there's gonna be some room to narrow that up a little.
What was the funds that we set aside again, part of the budget? What was that
Uh,
figure?
50,000, I believe. There was 25 for, well, it was a $50,000 project.
This is
Because this is the, we discussed when we went out to bid that this was gonna be, we were gonna purchase the software and our IT support provider would do the install since it's their
Right.
system. And assuming we're allowed to proceed with this, I can bring a proposal back from them if it's in excess of $10,000.
So you're comfortable we're still below that threshold that we allotted?
Yes.
I know it's not much, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Why did we not award to the low, I see right there, received at 10:13 a.m. Forget it, answer my own question.
Late.
Late.
Responsive.
Late.
I'll make the motion.
A second.
Second. All in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Low bidder and you're late, that hurts.
By 13 minutes.
Next item, Twyla.
Other business, council committee reports.
Someone had some explaining.
You're
to
up,
do.
Mr. Albert.
So, school, kicked off. Yeah, it started up. Yeah, right. No, nothing new to report.
Thank you. Planning board, as of communication I saw earlier in the week, we now have 2 associate member positions available, so tell your friends, get them here.
Hmm?
It'll be on next meeting's
Yeah,
agenda.
yeah, it's
but
fine.
there
Yeah,
was a-
it's like, the puzzled look can go away.
That'll be my piece for tonight. Next is
Water.
Nothing new to report.
LDC,
Same here.
Conservation,
Nothing to report?
Recreation.
Nothing to report?
County budget. They have a county budget, there's a public hearing on that tomorrow night that will be starting up on Wednesday nights. I haven't heard or seen the numbers, but, you can rest assured, starting 2 weeks from now, there'll be a lot more coming on that. Library, sir.
I have nothing to report. Diane's in the audience if she has anything she wants to add.
Go,
Town
Diane.
manager.
Just a reminder that next Tuesday night at 6 PM is the Lisbon Emergency Workshop. I've contacted all the stakeholders. Some will be here. There's one, Topsom, I don't believe will be here, but I did have a conversation with them. So, it should be an interesting meeting. I did request some information from Lisbon Emergency in preparation of the meeting next week, so hopefully they'll be able to provide that for us.
Now, is next week just the workshop? Or?
Just the workshop, 6 PM.
How do you envision it flowing so we stay on task?
I think it'd be a good idea to listen to some ideas from some of the stakeholders around the table that night. I don't expect you to make any decisions, but what I think would happen after that meeting is maybe break out into a smaller committee to look at it and ask some of the really tough questions.
I know the,
I think that it's gonna need some work.
Something to keep in mind is after they came to us and presented, I reached out and spoke to a couple of folks, but one thing that I took away was that we're talking about a lot of things. We talk about services, talk about how they run their business, and for me, I think the only way to kind of go and get our hands in the mud a little bit, I'm going to go do a ride-along. I encourage you, every one of you, to decide if that's something you want to do, whether it's just going into the place where they do business and asking them questions. Honestly, I'm just going to go sit there, and if they get a call, great, I'll go along with, but I just want to see how they run their operation, see the equipment that they talked about, because numbers on a paper on a truck that's 18 years old, and you actually put your eyes on it, you can see what they're dealing with. That kind of stuff is important when we start to talk about those hard questions and what they're up against and what kind of services the community has grown to know, and what we may have to look at going in a different direction in, so.
we're just about 90 days out from their time frame, what they talked about for their, one of the things that wasn't clear in that workshop is when they need a commitment from the town by. I'm sure that's still on there. We haven't heard anything on that, and I know we put this out there as soon as we have to be able to address those kind of conversations. So, just to reiterate to anybody listening at home is the fact that they do a plan if they don't get commitment from Bowden and Lisbon to shutter the doors of Lisbon Emergency effective 12/31 this year. They presented their model and are committed to depleting what they have for reserves to that point where it's not counterproductive or dangerous levels, but they need a commitment from the community to be able to move forward.
And there's no way, it's not even got enough timeline to put that on a ballot for November.
Right,
Correct?
right. And
If the need is below 250, then
right, the threshold is there, but the
You
point
would have
is,
more
is
opinion.
it's $160,000 this year, $160,000 after the 3 years. I forget which, but it is a sizable investment that was nowheres in any of the budget discussions that we vetted through the time frame of January to March that actually is looming out there.
which department does it come from?
Or where do we have the expectation that it's just loaded on
Right.
to our level of services to retain what we have
Yeah.
with no promises of change? So that's, we're making the dialogue here because it's been over a month since that meeting, and I've heard nothing on this topic locally. The fact is, that's scary, in my opinion, associated with that, with the level of change that isn't on people's radar screen, so we need to be able to get it there to at least have the dialogue. How's that for Danny Downer? Let's move right along.
Hugs all around.
Next item,
Yes, please.
mass gathering ordinance.
I've asked for it to be actually come back here for a variety of different reasons. Discussion, the last time that it was on there for the discussion part of it, there were 4 of us that were able to be in attendance. A year ago, last spring, it would have actually been the intent there, something either attached to the Moxie Festival or at Beaver Park-ish, to be able to have a larger gathering. As you guys saw in the information that was put out there, the verbiage there is 1,000 people or over. Under, it doesn't require. It's my understanding, having this dialogue with Diane, there's nothing preventing the things that we were talking about a year ago from actually going on today, i.e., the beer garden idea, if we were going to have that at a festival like the Moxie Festival or something outside that somebody would bring in, there are mechanisms in play to be able to incorporate that. Key sound bites that I would take away with something of the Moxie Festival is there's a coordinated effort that starts this time now in preparation for July next year. When you start talking about geography and where these things are going to happen, everything that's somebody brings in at that late hour needs to be considered where it's going to be placed. I'm not sure the mass gathering ordinance is still something we want to go towards. It's my understanding something that covers more political events or items of that nature.
Concerts or something.
Concerts.
Somebody has 5,000 people at a concert out in a field, you have no mechanism right now.
Right. But key pieces that I would put in there, we don't have the ability to waive anything, say, liquor or food at our parks except for nonprofits.
Right.
That if we wanted to say, tying the two conversations at that point together, Beaver Park, to not being able to hold a family wedding there and bring in a caterer with a liquor license, I think that's unacceptable. I think it's doing us a disservice we might want to consider. That's just my opinion. I think it's a perfect venue that needs to be further explored and marketed in that regard.
Yeah, I think for
Also-
Beaver Park, that's a whole can of worms we need to look into, what's the
Right.
appropriate fee schedule for that. If you're gonna rent it out to somebody for a wedding, then other people can't use that field during that time, so,
Right.
You gotta figure out, what's gonna make money at that position there.
But right now, even the bylaws associated with that, we don't have the ability to be able to have the discussion because we can only waive that fee for a nonprofit of that kind of variety. The perfect example, the one that came a year ago was the PCL when they were talking about this. We have that discretion. That was taken care of. But is it far enough to be able to incorporate other things?
It's not so much the fee, it's the fact that a while ago, we couldn't have any alcohol on
Correct.
parks. We changed that to allow you to make that decision for nonprofits.
Correct.
We just need to open it up to make that decision for all folks who come in here. And I think it's just a matter of changing the language or identifying where in an ordinance, whether it's under the parks. I think before we were thinking as a standalone ordinance. Now I think there's a mechanism inside of the existing parks rules, for the lack of a better term, there to be able to do this.
And And I
So-
had that discussion with Dan Stockford too, and he said, you know, you can make that change under there. So I think if I work with him to see what we can come up with some language.
I think that
Then
make,
obviously the fee's a whole nother animal that we'll have to deal with.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense here because we don't have to do a standalone ordinance, have to go through all the hoops and go along with that. If there's existing language there that we can modify to be a little bit more inclusive as far as allowing all and not just nonprofits, then that might spurn or encourage use of those facilities. Like you had mentioned, you know, Beaver Park portions, if we're going to sanction that off and make sure it's worth our while. So I agree 100%, but I think that's something that we kind of drill down. We have to get to
In the
that
park
point.
ordinance would make
We have
more
to get to that point and open it up for all, and then from there we can start to drill down on what's acceptable use, what isn't, what's the appropriate fee schedule. I think we can look at a bunch of different places. Wolf's Neck comes to mind as an example. They're on the sea, but a little bit different. It's the same idea. It's a giant piece
Venue's a
of Mother
venue.
Nature. Yeah.
And the other part of that timeline, what are we expecting for that permitting time frame? Hard and fast, you know, 60 days, 90 days?
Oh, yeah.
What's the turnaround to be able to get assurances that somebody bringing something of this nature in are being met? The example, a beer garden or a wedding has very clear liquor regulations, areas having to be cordoned off, and those kind of criteria being met need to be demonstrated by somebody coming in. You know, so that would have to be a part as well.
Yeah, I think that language would support, you know, how that area is cordoned off, what requirements are for identifying those who are of legal age and allowed in that area. Are there required to have law enforcement presence at these? So all that stuff, we can look to other, examples and cherry pick the things we like the best out of those and kind of see if we can sprinkle them into the one that we come up with.
Right, yeah, no need to reinvent the wheel.
Right, I'm a big fan of that, Mark.
That's a good point, Mr. Lunt, in that regard. Is one of the clear things that was communicated to me through Diane on this is the fact is there's nothing preventing that in the ordinances now. What we're talking about is tweaking them to be able to accommodate it better, but there's nothing that's limiting it right now. So, anything else on the topic? I know we were looking at originally, I know why it was here. I feel better that at least what we intended a year ago was actually done, but I'm not sure it was enough. So, it met the criteria for what I was looking for. But I'm just one. If anybody else is seeing something else or seeing it in a different direction, at least we have the dialogue and it'll be placed someplace differently when we talk about parks.
If we do it now, we can have a beer garden in time for the Winterfest.
You can't even have a food truck on site.
Well, that's another thing too, that if we're gonna do that, you wanna look at that as well.
You can't even have a food truck on site. Come on, that's what I'm saying. The park ordinances are that restrictive. The fact is that'd be a perfect opportunity to bring in something of that nature. And the event has been a success the last 2 years, but everything has been a giveaway.
Right.
The fact is, it has to be because it doesn't meet the criteria of what we have in play now.
And just to think of the folks that could contribute, whether it's the LHS boosters or PCL, or whoever wants to get involved and be able to sell product there, we have to be a little bit smarter about how we're presenting that. If we want it to become an attraction, we have to make sure it's the language that we have in our current policies encourage
Right.
that.
Right. And I think it's a missed opportunity.
Yep.
You
No
know?
argument here.
I'm
Okay.
sure we'll talk about it more.
What do you mean?
Keeping
Moving right along, Twyla.
us on the track.
Audience participation and response for new items.
Anybody? Sure, come on up. Identify yourself.
Dorothy Fitzgerald, Lisbon Falls. You haven't heard from me for a while. Kind of backtracking a little bit, this wasn't on my, but the natural gas Union Street, the going out to bid, was that amount for the work to do, was that included in this year's budget? Or is that going to be a new budget, or where's the money coming from?
My recommendation, depending on what It is not currently in the budget, the way we've presented it tonight, but we do have money in the downtown TIF that could cover it. And that's what, and it's set up that way so that we can improve infrastructure downtown.
Okay, the town internet technology, do we have an IT specialist or someone that, I went through the town report and I don't see anything on the town side to pay an internet, anyone for internet technology. I see that the school department is paying someone over $50,000 for that, but I don't see anything on the town side. Do we have an IT specialist?
We have a gentleman who has many hats. One of them is our IT and buildings department, and Ryan Layton actually that falls under his jurisdiction, and we currently sub out to somebody to actually maintain our infrastructure. Is that correct,
We have
Mr.
a
Layton?
Contractor.
Correct.
But why don't I see something in the town budget to that effect?
You do.
You do.
You just don't see
Item for
the,
a contracted service that we pay out for IT services, rather than having, we used to have someone on staff, and that person left, and we went to a contracted with a company instead as an outside.
I think that person was
But like I
after.
said, I didn't see it in the town
It's
report.
under
technology,
it's in
Doc.
the technology part of the budget.
Technology.
I mean, it might not show up in the town report, it would be in the budget, the yearly budget that we passed.
I didn't see anything about technology.
you'd have
It's
to go
under the same-
deeper.
so,
You'd have to go deeper
Ryan-
into that book
Yeah.
to get your answer. It's in there.
It is there.
It is there, Dot.
It's one of the tabs,
what-
yeah.
What do they do? What are their duties?
The technologies piece? Ryan, why don't you come up here? I mean, I could spout them off, but I think it'd be better for you to be able to talk about what you do.
I'm gonna put you on the hot seat.
No big deal. Ryan Layton, Public Works Director. We currently hire out for our IT support, and it covers both the town municipal operations as well as, I separate them, but they're the same, but it's the town and the PD. And they handle all of our server maintenance, oversight. They do all our antivirus, all our new accounts, user profile setups. They come in and set up computers and, do whatever we have to do with printers and whatnot. They basically, we hired a firm at a fraction of the cost to do all the same work that a full-time person would do. And the benefit is that you get 5 to 10 technicians that are available on call versus being at the luxury of one person that sick, vacation, whatever. So we basically have round-the-clock coverage by one firm
For less money.
for less.
Thank you, Ryan.
Kind of brings me back to the town's website. The audio for the council meetings was not available, was not there for June, July, and August. I'm wondering why. I mean, and no one from town picked it up, that the audio was not available for town council meetings on the town's website.
That's currently working though, Dot.
What?
That is currently working though now.
But it wasn't for either July or August. It was not working. It may be now, I haven't checked.
Yes, it is.
So whose responsibility is that to check on that, to make sure that if a citizen wants to view the town council meeting on the town website, you can see them, but you can't hear them. So what is the point if you can't hear them? Well, the last council meeting that I attended that had to do with the Lisbon emergency, I couldn't hear what was going on because you people have your own discussion up here. So I listened to it on Friday at 7 o'clock on Channel 7. I had to turn my volume up to 30 so I could hear you guys.
Okay.
I don't know about the rest of them, but I'm pretty clear. So
I can hear Norm.
maybe it's time for a new TV.
Words
I
you
can
say
hear
a meeting,
Norm.
sir.
Sometimes I can hear Alan if I have my glasses down and I can
It's
see.
because the last time you chastised us, I make sure to lean into the microphone. I have tried to play along.
You still talk among yourselves up here. No,
Yes.
I'm just wondering who's responsible to make sure that if anyone is trying to catch a council meeting on the town's website and you can't hear it, who's responsible for that? Is
Long
that
story,
the
long story
IT?
short, I think you made it to actually, you pointed it out to Twyla, and Twyla took care of it.
Okay,
That falls to, hold on.
these are two separate things. Watching it on TV, I watched the last council meeting on TV.
Okay.
Channel 7. Had to turn my, sound up to 30 so that I can hear you guys.
Audio and visual is the same. It's all one meeting, so in that regard, they aren't two different things. You're saying you can't hear us. It's one dialogue for the
Okay,
same meeting.
TV and the town's website are two different things.
I understand, but it's the same file out there on the website. So if you have one, it has to be both.
And if it's being rebroadcast by, in this case, the cable provider, they're going to be the ones that regulate what they send and how they send that signal. So I'm not trying to pass the buck here. I'm just saying when they pass along that signal to your TV, we're out of the loop on that. It's got recorded here, right there at that camera, and it was uploaded, and then from there, it's out of our hands. I'm not saying that we don't own it. Like you said, you go to the website, you let Twyla know. She checked it, got it fixed, so you could hear it on there. But as far as the television broadcast goes, we don't really have, our hands are tied on that.
I'm talking apples and oranges. TV is apples. The computer is oranges. Watching and listening to a council meeting on the town's website. It's on the town's website, correct?
Right.
But it's the same file.
It's the same file that went out on cable.
What you're seeing on TV, regardless if you're watching it on TV or you're watching it on your computer, you're watching the same thing.
I know, I realize.
Same recordings.
But I had to turn my sound up to 30 on TV.
Right.
But there was no audio at all on the town's website. So whose responsibility is that to check, to be sure that if I'm trying
Diane,
to catch it?
Twyla, the one you have can answer that?
It's fixed already.
Okay, so
He wants to know who's responsible.
Who fixes it?
who checked?
Who
so
do you
we-
contact to
what
let
we
them
can
know?
do? I think I understand what you're saying.
She's looking to point a finger. She's looking to point a finger at somebody.
Going
Go ahead.
Hey, no,
just
Twyla,
asking.
going forward, is it something? When do we normally see these uploaded to the website?
By Thursday.
By Thursday.
Yeah, and the one on the front page that we do seems to be working fine. So I had
Yep.
no clue that something was different in another section on that website.
Is there any way that we could find someone to just be able to click the link on a Thursday when it uploads, just to check to make sure? You don't have to listen to the whole thing. God knows I wouldn't want to listen to it again twice.
Yeah, so
But
we
I'm
don't
just
have to
saying, yeah,
Doc
hit
come in here and straighten us out.
We can put a mechanism in place, Dot, to kind of make sure that we catch that. We're happy to do that.
Would be kind of nice.
No problem at all.
Nice.
We can make that
Well
happen.
done. Next question,
You
Dot.
can email Twyla if it doesn't work.
Please,
That's
please let
yeah.
me
We
know.
I
yeah.
think that's
They're
it.
very quickly, they fixed it within 5 minutes today, so, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dot.
Anyone else? Moving right along, Twyla.
Counselor Communications.
Anybody?
I have nothing.
Thanks for everybody showing up. Next.
Full compliment.
I had to do that part last meeting. I wasn't comfortable with it.
Order 2017-228 to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I will second.
And it's 7-all. Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, sir.
Get home safe.
Ed.
All right.
So tired.
All right. I need to.
Look at the shiny new website with our old logo sitting right on there.
It's gonna look
Piece
awesome.
of crap.
It's gonna look awesome.
Do.
Except for the logo. Don't look at the logo.
Logo's gonna be great. It's all pixelated, look like Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
exactly.
awesome, brother.
So,
Even if it looked good, even if it was a good quality, it's not a good design.
Hannah, thanks for coming out, huh?
What's your due diligence?
hi, Hannah. Be interested. I only got 7 more to sell.
How much are they?
$10 a piece.
All right, I'll hit you. What was it? Friday.
Okay.
And as I said,
If somebody beats me to it, they beat me to it. I will.